All right, we're live. So welcome to Heller Barnes, and we've got a great guest today. Tom's we got a it's Tom's like the typical guy where he has a full-time job and he's still kicking butt in this business, and it just blows me away that somebody would be doing both at the same time because that's a non-trivial thing to do. And so Johnny, first off, how you doing? Good to see you
I
again.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm doing fine. Tommy, I didn't know you had a full-time job in it right now.
I
I
do, I do. I'm a mild-mannered reporter for a large metropolitan newspaper.
Are you serious?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
I'm an editor and marketing writer for a large, professional AV company, something that even Don might know about, but, so I'm kind of like if you were to think of Mad Men,
yeah.
without the booze and, womanizing and smoking,
Wait, well,
so
then
take out
why
all
would
the
you even think about it?
okay,
I'm
yeah, take out
curious.
all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
That's me. I do a lot of marketing copy for everything from web copy to brochures to whatever, a lot of
Interesting.
social media stuff. Yeah, so,
I never knew that. I mean, because 'cause you've been
um,
to, I'm trying to think when we met. I know you were in New Orleans with me, but we met before
yep.
that.
I was at the, I think it was 2022, New England narrator retreat. My wife came with me to that one, and so that was back when we were still wearing masks.
Oh, right. That was the
And
first
then I
time
went
back.
to and then I was at the 2019 Splendiferous Workshop in New York City, and then, of course, it was just at, New Orleans in 2024, and just last month in, back in New England.
I can say
So,
I was thinking of New Orleans that for those who don't know, I did, one of my travel workshops. We went to, New Orleans. And it was I don't know, what did we have, about 15, 20 of us or something like that,
yeah, at
uh,
least, yeah,
for a week. It was really a great time.
it was.
Um, it ended up being so expensive for us that and for everybody. I don't Joanna and I literally broke even or lost a little bit on the deal, but
Yeah,
it was so much fun. New Orleans was such a great time. And,
yeah. Well, it
and
was
so
great
we
because
wanted
we had all the workshops and everything kind of until about 2:30, and then we got
then
together with our families or whomever, just sightseeing in the afternoon,
you
and
remember the
so
hideous graveyard tour? That was
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, it was when we all were melting in the humidity there, and hearing some really bizarre kind of,
Yeah.
um, just
It
stories, that didn't make a lot of sense about the ghosts. But it was fun. It was fun.
I went on a ghost tour in Charleston when Joanna and I were there, and, it was it was literally the worst thing ever, and at the end there had to be 35 of us in this group at night in Charleston looking at these graves, and this guy just, tells the story, "And his ghost is still there." I'm like, "Well, where? It's not there." And so as he talked, people started peeling off. So finally, there's maybe 6 of us left. It was a noticeable downturn in the crowd as the show was going on, and at the end, he goes, "Please feel free to leave comments." I said, "No, dude, you don't want that. You're barely hanging on to this gig."
Yeah, leave me a Yelp review,
That's it.
just please be kind. I mean, it's amazing you stayed around that long. Most people, I mean, people
I
are
felt
peeling off
well,
right in the
I would have
middle.
left. Joanna's very, very nice.
Yeah, it takes a nice person to stick around with something like that.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
which I am not.
So we actually have a question here straight up, and so, Lisa asked, "Oh, very interesting. So is it easy, even second nature, for you to do reach outs for your narration since you are obviously?" Oh, if I would click on that, that would be even better.
Yeah.
So you end up with kind of a unique situation. You already are working communications, but for somebody else now, how does that translate when you got in this business to reach out? Because is that correct that you're doing some sort of media stuff and you're already in that business?
Well, it is, except, the business that I'm in is professional AV, I mean, as far as my day job goes, so that's an entirely separate thing than audiobook narration. I mean, this is the creative fun stuff here, and what I do at my day job, although I do love it, and I've been at the same company for 20 years, I do a lot of communication, though, so it's a good question and it's valid. So, I do a lot of social media. I'm not afraid to write things and to talk about myself when it comes to pitching and reaching out to publishers and so forth. There's not a lot of crossover from that, except for the fact that I've always been a writer. And, writing emails comes fairly easy. It's interesting, though, just to segue into AI just real briefly. Don, I know you and I had a long discussion about that when in New England. Um, there's there more and more people are using AI to write their emails, including, I'm sure, to publishers out there and to any job prospect. I heard just recently that resumes are being taken a lot lighter as far as, hey, this is a great, look at this resume, it's beautifully written. And now they're all written by AI. So like, and so are the cover letters that go along with it, and the thank you letters that are going to the people that interviewed you. So all these things have like devalued. So now it's just a matter of getting face to face with somebody without a computer screen in front of them or their phone where they can use AI.
Wow.
And I would assume that's the same thing going on with reaching out to publishers and, prospective authors and everything else. AI does a fantastic job of those types of emails.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to beat that as a human. Now, it takes some editing to go in and actually, fix them up a little bit to make it sound as human as possible and add a little humor to it or whatever. But the bulk of it can be written by AI.
Yeah. And
Can
here's now,
can you use a sorry, Donnie, go ahead.
from your professional point of view, though, quality overall.
Quality overall is very good, and it's getting nothing but better. We're at the stage right now in AI, as you know, that is the worst it's ever going to be. And that's only because it's growing every single day, and it's getting more accurate, and it's getting scarier, question mark. I wrote two articles for VO Extra on AI and the voiceover business and audiobook narration. It came out a couple years back when just after ChatGPT started really taking off and people were freaking out about it's going to take our jobs or not. My advice to everybody, including those people listening right now or later, is just be the best narrator you can be. Get as much coaching as you can. Be the best human you can be. Reach out. Don't be afraid to talk to authors. I've kind of got an unpopular way of working with ACX and independent authors in that not everybody that I've talked to, especially long-term narrators who've been around for a long time, they say, oh, you shouldn't do that. I always make a point to talk to authors that I'm going to work with over the phone or a Zoom session before I sign anything or get too deep into the contract. First of all, I want to make sure they're human, especially if you're finding them on ACX. Second of all, I think it's a really good practice to make that connection, that human connection with somebody. Emails are great, texts are fine. Messaging through ACX is hit and miss. But if you talk to somebody, not only do you start to establish that rapport that is going to lead to a good business relationship, but you also get to say, hey, I'm a human being. You're not just talking AI here. And as we go further and forward, this is going to be more and more important. So I always talk to people. Most people are like, oh, no, you should never bother the author. Like, man, I'm in 50-50 with this person.
Yeah, yes.
And this is a business relationship. If I was going to open up a donut shop with somebody, you're going to tell me that I can't talk to them on the phone or see them in person beforehand. It's like, and by the way, don't open a donut shop. GLP-1 meds are taking those things down until they don't. But anyway, side note. But yeah, so I always talk to people on the phone. I don't know how I got on that subject, but carry on.
You could open a donut shop in Portland and call it Ice.
You could.
And so, anyway, sorry, I went there.
Yeah, but no.
But what I think about the AI thing that you mentioned, and Don, but I agree with you. I think you should, especially with 50 on the ACX deals and on the deals, the independent deals with the author. I think it's paramount that you have a relationship with that author, and the idea that you can't talk to them, when you're working for Macmillan, Simon & Schuster, anybody, the biggies, sometimes they don't want you to talk to the author because they have a certain relationship and they want things to go through them. And I understand that because authors are, the really good ones they want to keep them and they want to make sure everything's fine. But if it's just like I get books because of relationships I have with authors. And sometimes that author I work with Todd Goldberg all the time, and he's been with Blackstone and Tantor and Harp, he moves around, recorded books, all these, so they go around. So you want to keep the relationship with the author, and you can't get that by not talking.
Right.
And particularly, as Tom points out, if you're in the ACX or an independent relationship that you have a contract that you're both going to get 50% of the profits, that is a business relationship. That's a partnership. And there's nothing wrong, and absolutely a brilliant idea to make sure they're not an AI person, or an AI non-person, and I think that's great. Just if you're working, just as a heads up for those out there, if you're working for a publisher, clear it with them, because you may know, hey, my friend Tom, I'm doing a book by Tom Jordan, and Tom wrote a book and I'm doing it. Well, they may not know I'm friends with Tom. So I let them know that this guy's a friend of mine. So I will be. I just did the Gales of November, the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. John Bacon I have his phone number. He's a friend of mine. I know, we're friends now because we've worked together. I did call him up, but I told in advance that I was going to. And by the way, speaking of Tom, me doing Tom's books, here, I'll get it in now. Tom, in addition to all the other things, is a published author. So
True.
I want to point that out. So we can talk
Yeah.
about that career. Do you want to talk more AI stuff, Don? Because I want to ask about how Tom got started and everything.
Well,
No, go ahead.
I'm
Jump
using
in.
it for crazy
We got an
amount of
hour.
stuff. Okay, so we'll just leave it at that.
Fill
It
it
will
up.
probably come up again.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, we'll come back to it.
So what
So
I
tell
want
it.
to know is
So
how does I'm going to interrupt you, Johnny, here. So
good.
how does being an author influence being a narrator?
It's a very good question. I've heard that Jonathan, can't think of his last name,
Siegel.
writes his books for Ray Porter sometimes. Like he knows, writing in mind that Ray
Oh,
Porter is
right.
going to be narrating them.
Do you
And
do
so
the
when I
same?
was, what's that?
Are you going to narrate your own, or do you?
Well, I did. I've written 2 books. One of them was just kind of a silly self-help book. It was like 49 pages. It was called Self-Esteem for Losers. And I did that about 8 years ago, or maybe closer to 10. I actually went in, this is when I first started to get into audiobook narration. And I wanted to learn about audiobook narration from the backside, from the author's perspective. So I went in, and it was 8 years ago. So I went into ACX as an author. So I've got an author account as well as a producer account. So I've got a producer and a rights holder account. And I wanted to learn the ropes and how to hire a narrator. So I hired somebody, paid him for that work, even though it was a very short book. And it turned out fine. But I got to learn the ropes in that. And so that's how I started to kind of fish myself out there to people that may want to learn about moving from voiceover into audiobook narration. I said, well, look, I've been on both sides of the curtain. I can kind of help you with this. So to answer your question, when it came to The Skin Doctor, which is the book that I just published in March, self-published, and that one I did kind of write, knowing full well that I was going to narrate it. So it's written and narrated by me. But it didn't inform it too much. It wasn't like I was going to change the story, but I also knew what kind of fun things would be like, what voices would be great to be able to articulate in that, in the narration. So I did it in that sense. It was kind of neat to be able to cater to that a little bit.
You can even write that. Yeah, is it a fiction book, The Skin
It's
Doctor?
fiction, yeah.
So you can write. The doctor sounded much like famed actor Tom Jordan, and then
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'll take whatever I can get. Yeah. So, but it was a fun book to write, and it took just darn near a year. I'm working on another one now that's going to probably even take longer than that, but I'm not in a hurry. I've got a lot going on between full-time
you're
day
busy
job
man.
and now I narrate early morning too, which is what I should probably bring up. Not only is it quieter, even though I've got a double-walled booth here, but I'm a morning person. So Don, you must be too. You were up early this morning.
Well, we had a chat going on. I think it was
5:30 or
I think
something.
you sent me something at 5:38, and I responded at 5:45. I noticed it
Right.
just because it was such an odd thing to have somebody else up at before 6, and I saw your message. I thought, wow, he's a nut too.
Yeah, yeah. I typically, when when I've got a book going, which is just about all the time, I'm up at 4:45 and start narrating at 5. I hear people all the time, and I'll bring this up only because I'm curious about what you guys do for your prep. I hear people say, "Well, I've got to drink 3 of these, and I've got to do my vocal exercises," and it's usually anywhere between 35 and 45 minutes before I'm able to actually read anything on the page. Now, if there's any publishers out there listening, or if there's anybody else that really wants great advice, do what you need to do to make sure your voice is well prepped before you get behind the mic. For me, I take a couple sips of water, and I kind of dive right in. I don't see any problem with that. I've been doing it for 8 years, and nobody's ever said, boy, your morning voice sounds really different than your afternoon voice when you're doing pickups. But I don't know what you guys do or what you do for prep, Johnny, when you're reading.
Well, people ask that a lot. I have been. It depends if you like the sound of my voice or not, but I've been blessed by the fact it doesn't change. It doesn't. I've had a cold. I mean, of course that changes it, but all I do is once in a while, and this is because, as I mentioned before, we started our cast here. When you're looking up research words, and they have all the YouTube videos, and the YouTube videos it's an algorithm. They know what I like, so there's stuff. So sometimes it'll be like the karaoke with the Commitments or something, or Chad and Jeremy or something. It's on the big hits. So sometimes I'll break into a karaoke number. And I pretend it's a warm up, but it's just me screwing around. I don't really do anything. The only thing I tend to do is when I pick up, my book from wherever I don't come in first thing in the morning, but like, let's say when we're done with this show, I'll probably start working. So I listen to how I finished. I just listen to the last sentence or two just to see where I was energy-wise.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
I try and match that so it doesn't sound jarring to the listener. But in terms of the sound, unless I have a cold, it's nothing. And I know a lot of people do all, I was a, theater guys. I did vocal warm-ups and Shakespearean monologues and things. And I know people do it all the time. And ma, me, me, mo, moo, and try and say the alphabet with a wine cork in your bottle after not having had the wine right away. And then you do that, and it's all fine. Whatever works for you is what you should do. But understand, for a lot of us, clearly Tom, clearly me, we don't do it. And it's fine. Vocal health is super important, very important. This is your instrument. The only thing I'd suggest in this is when you play characters in fiction, you can't make even though selection sounds great to you, if it's a choice that hurts the instrument, physically hurts, so that when you played the character for 10, 15 minutes, it negatively impacts the rest of your choices. That's not a good choice. But other than that, you know what you guys need to do.
Yeah.
If you're a person who warms up, a person who gargles bourbon, then do it. Whatever you need to do.
So
I narrated
most mornings when you narrate, it's 10 minutes and then you're done for the day?
8 to 10.
8 to 10. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'll do a couple hours in the morning, then I'll start my job around 7, my day job. And then I've got an hour for lunch, and I can narrate then. And then I'm off usually around 4:00 as far as my day job goes, and I can narrate then. I'm lucky enough to be able to work from home, so I've got my booth in the next room. That started during COVID, and it's continued. So it's pretty lucky. I can pop in here to do that for lunch, and then it seems to work out okay. So I might get 3 hours per day, which translates to what, maybe an hour of recorded audio, something like that. So when I talk to people and clients and authors, and they want something done right away, it brings up a recent experience I had with an author who had a book that I was willing to do royalty share, and I've been doing royalty share plus now for a while, and kind of staying away from royalty share strictly, just because I can now because of the way I'm working my workload and the authors I'm working with. But this person was kind of turned off by the fact that it was going to take 2.5 months, and it was during the summer, and I had a vacation in there as well. And he said, "Yeah, I really want you. I love your voice. I love what you do, but I'm afraid it's gonna take too long." And I came back with him, and this was not during a conversation live. It was during an email. And I said, "Look, I totally understand." I said, "The audiobook that you're going to end up with is going to be out there until the sun blows up, and numerous people are going to listen to it over the next decades." I said, "You've got a choice. You can either choose me, the person that you wanted from the very beginning, and get it done in 2.5 months. Either way, you're going to have an audiobook out there in 3 months, whether it was done by me or your second choice, and it's going to be out there forever." And I let him sit on that for a little bit, and he came back and says, "Okay, you got the job." So that's one negotiation tactic that you can use. If taking too long on an audiobook is something that is turning off an author, yes, I got this right, then you can just let them know, "Well, that's fine. I totally get that. I honor that. I respect your opinion. But just remember that in 2 months, whether or not I do it or somebody else is doing it, it's going to be out there until the sun blows up. Would you rather have something out there that was your first choice as a narrator, or something that got done in 3 weeks instead of 2 months?" And so that negotiation tactic seems to work. And it's true. There's nothing snarky or sly about that.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why it's good to have a relationship with an author that you can talk.
Right.
You can say that because you can,
Yeah.
you have a relationship and they know who you are. You're a likable fellow and you're very friendly. So you're not being a jerk about anything. You say, "I've got to do,
Yeah.
here's my schedule."
Right.
And that's true, I think, for everybody. When you audition, when you try and get a job, if they ask you, if the time frame doesn't work in your time frame, all you can do is negotiate to make it work for both of you or not. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It doesn't. There's no negativity.
Right.
It just doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay to
Tell
say
us
no.
how you got into this, Tom. That's what I want to know, because you started out as a as
Started out
what?
as
A weightlifter? What did you do?
Yeah, a professional weightlifter. No,
Sumo wrestler?
I was voiceover for a while. So I started with voiceover back in the early 90s, before the internet, before you could actually email auditions, and you had to go into, for me, I live in Orange County, California, probably about 50 miles from Don, down south. And, but I had to go to Studio City or Santa Monica or Burbank
Yeah.
to do all my auditions. So that was kind of crazy. And I had a car that didn't like the freeways. So this is back in the early 90s. It was broke. But I'd try anything and I'd try to do anything I could. And I got a few jobs that way and a few union paying jobs, even though I didn't get my union card back then. So I started with voiceover and I really liked it, but it wasn't bringing in any money. And then I met my beautiful wife, who's probably watching right now. Hi, honey. In 1994, and in 1995, we got married and we started talking about having kids. And I realized, well, this job wasn't going to cut it. So I put my voiceover career on hold for roughly 10 years.
Damn kids.
Until the kids were old enough to kind of
go out and get their own job.
Go out and get their own job. So in their 8
10 years old, start into your keep.
Exactly. Yeah. So then I started getting into podcasting because that started being a thing. I was a very early adopter of podcasting back in 2006. I had 7 podcasts over the years. But that wasn't bringing money in, and I knew that wasn't going to make money, but I just wanted to stay behind the mic. But that also meant, hey, I got an idea. As a voiceover artist, I can reach out now. And this was actually, I'm going to jump back a little bit. This was about 2003. I thought about contacting, and this is something you could still do, by the way, contact mid-market. So Columbus, Ohio, for instance, these smaller towns are not smaller, but smaller than the large cities, and contact media companies that are in there and talk to them, talk to the person that's in charge of hiring voiceover talent. Now, a lot of them nowadays are going to go, oh, we've got AI that does all that. But every once in a while, you'll find somebody that's old school, that's been there for 25 years. Yeah.
Does that person have a title, generally, a similar title in every company?
Media director, media relations director. But if you just start off by saying, if I can talk to somebody who's in charge of hiring your voice talent, that will kind of cover everything. You won't get hung up on that fast. So I started doing that, but I also started looking at local cable companies because a lot of them produce their own commercials. And realizing full well that I wasn't going to get a lot of money for local commercials, but I got a ton of cable companies that fished me out to mom and pop stores, Paul's Hardware of, whatever, Delaware, and just these tiny little things, and a lot of car dealerships. So I had to bring up my car dealership voice. Then I made a little demo reel back then. And of course, don't make your own demo reel, please. But I did, unless you're an audiobook narrator, you can do that kind of thing. But for commercial stuff, I did my own demo reel back before you weren't supposed to do that. And I fished that out there. So I started getting, I was getting daily work, but they were $50 a pop, and it would take me half a day to really get it down. But I learned audio editing that way. I learned more about voiceover, and then I got a good coach for voiceover shortly after that, and then that led me to meeting people online like James Romick, who I think was a guest a while back with you guys. He's a real troublemaker. He's a good guy though, and he kind of encouraged me to get into audiobook narration. This was 2017. He said, "Boy, I listened to one of your commercials that you did for Edge Studios, and it sounded a lot like an audiobook. Have you ever thought about that?" And I was like, I don't want to get behind it in a booth for 3 hours at a time. And I did the whole thing that we all talked about.
Yeah.
But I did, and I tried it, and it turns out I really liked it. So that was 2017, and I haven't looked back. Now I still do voiceover stuff. I still have an agent, and I get a couple auditions a week and throw those out there to the ether. But I really like audiobook narration. When you're doing this, and you guys know, every day you're building something that's going to be out there for a very long time. When you're doing auditions for voiceover, which is still good stuff, you're throwing them out there into the ether. You never know. You're never going to hear back. You're never going to get any feedback on them, anything like that. But with audiobook narration, hey, you get reviews, good and bad. You get people that say that they like your work. It's pretty cool.
Well, you do. It's a bizarre business because you're right. When you audition for a voiceover, the spots you are auditioning for pay far more, especially union jobs,
right? Minute per minute,
than anything that we're doing as an audiobook. So you want to, but you rarely hear. And when I started in the business, before you, in the days when people would just yell things on street corners to each other, "Hey, buy this car," and then people would come by. That's how it worked. But nowadays, you got to meet everybody, which the AI is kind of breaking. As you said, you got to meet the people. When I was in Chicago, I started my career. I'd go to the ad agencies. You'd go there and you'd meet people. You meet the creatives, and you get along, and they decide who they wanted to work with, and you could start. Those days are long gone. So now you audition, you do the best job you can do,
right?
And you may hear, you may never hear.
Yeah.
And I got it. The last commercial I did it was not that long ago this year, and there was a PSA for the government about oh, it's the health department of health, whatever it was, about not trying to get kids not to smoke, and it was a talking nose, which I didn't know. And I thought, oh, it was just kind of gruff. Oh, you stink. Oh, and that was what the audition was.
Yeah.
So I kept getting put on hold, and this happens all the time. That's something else that doesn't happen in audiobooks. They want you to hold the state. You hold the state. That's not a booking. They
Right.
just want to hold it because it's either me, Tom, or Don. They don't know yet. So they want to keep all of us on pins and needles. And then they say, you can go ahead and do another date. And they did that for 8, 9 months. They kept holding. So I finally got the job. And they wanted me to do at my house here in Source Connect. I said, well, you're in a studio downtown. Why not just come?
Yeah.
Which I, so I forced my way to the studio, and I met 7 creatives were there for this spot. It was like, but it wasn't. They had 12 pages of copy, and I did all these different lines, tons of accents, everything they could. And then they told me the reason that they kept putting it on hold and get rid of it was because, I'm not being political, this is what happened. Trump and his folks kept firing whoever was in charge.
Mhm.
So they went through like 7 people who were
Yeah.
supposed to make the decision, but for one guy got in there long enough to say, let's make the commercial.
Wow.
And stuff
Right.
like that is the weird crap that goes on in voiceover. And there's weird stuff in audiobooks, but nothing quite like that. When you audition for an audiobook, you know pretty quickly whether or not you have it or not, because they'll let you know.
Right.
And you can, little hint, you can't do this a lot, but once I can say, I'm up for a couple other projects, I just need to know if I need to keep this date open.
Right.
That's a fair way of asking, hey, do I have this? You can't do it all the time, but kind of let you know if you're in the running. Like, I
Right.
think every one of us in the universe auditioned for the Ahab thing for the Bennett Cerf book, like 35 hours about Bennett Cerf. Now, everybody wants that because it's a gazillion. It takes care of your whole year.
Yeah.
So, but and it was weird. I was in. You know what I'm talking about? The Bennett Cerf audition on
No, I
Ahab?
didn't see that one, huh?
It was about a month ago, and it was literally 35 hours. The history of Bennett. That's a long time to spend with Bennett Cerf, but there you go.
Yeah.
So I was at Penguin Random House working on a book there. And Brian Ramcharan, who had the Bennett, he goes, I said, hey, Brian, how you doing? He goes, hey, Johnny, I'm listening to your audition right now. So I'm thinking, I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah.
Can I watch your face?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's weird because he listened to it, and clearly I didn't get the job.
Yeah.
But he can't tell me that right then.
Right.
I mean, everybody, understand, everybody's got to understand this. Everybody, when you audition, the person who wants to hire you wants you to get the job. And I
Yeah.
think all of us actors misunderstand that. If Don is hiring Tom, he wants Tom to be great. He wants John to be great. He wants his decision to be so easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I promise you, they're not actively rooting for you, but they are actively rooting for you to be good.
Right.
And I think we forget that a lot. And it's true even in commercial voiceover and e-learning. But it's in audiobooks. This is one of the industries, even though AI is encroaching, we have the opportunity to make personal relationships.
Right.
And those matter a great deal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And just being the real person that you are.
We have some questions for you here. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Tom, have you ever had an author or rights holder reject a complete recording? If so, how did you handle it? If not, how might you handle it? And that's from James.
I have not, but James, you're probably a pro at this. Not that you've done this.
Being turned down.
Hey, you've been turned down for more books than I can count. No, no, but but I've heard you give advice before, and you might even type it in here. But there's a cut clause, right? An ACX or a kill clause, I believe they call it.
Yeah.
Where you can actually, if something like that happens, you get a certain percentage of whatever you should have been getting. So no, I have not personally had that happen. I've never even started a book and then had them, pull out of the deal. I guess I'm just lucky, but I also really try to establish, like I said, relationships with these people right on early on. And Johnny, like you were saying, with the publishers really wanting things to work out. Boy, nobody wants a narrator to work out more than a independent author, because they don't like to do this. They don't like to audition all these people, and it becomes complicated and it becomes really time consuming. And what they want is they want a narrator who they can talk to, who's accessible, who gives quick, easy to read communication when they have a question, that
Yep.
is there to also kind of help them walk them through the process of being an author, because that's something that a lot of these independent authors, you can have a really good author that's brand new to the business that has a dynamite first book. Now, you may not get a lot of money from that first book, so try to do something other than just royalty share. But they just don't know about how it all works, and so having some knowledge about how the system works, how ACX works, and help walking them through that is what I've had to do over the years, and it's one of the things I kind of do now. I'm not shying away from new authors. If I
Yeah.
find somebody and the manuscript is good, I'll help them, and boy, do they appreciate it, and they want to keep you for their next book.
Yeah.
Some of these authors already have a backlog of books. I hooked up about 2 years ago with Monique Martin, who's a fantastic author. She's got the Out of Time series, which are time travel romances. So it's something other than horror and thriller that I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And she just she's great, and yet she was new to the hiring through ACX. I helped walk her through it. I also realized that she had 16 other books in that series ready to go. I had
Oh,
work
wow.
because of my schedule. I had work for the next 3 years. It was like
Hmm.
between that and the other books that were coming from other authors. So finding regular work through authors, especially if they've got a backlog and are willing to work with you, is dynamite. Now
Let
you
let
can
me
also,
ask what's on everybody's mind.
yeah.
How do you, Tom, find your authors? How do you discover these people? Where do you go? What do you do?
Lately, luckily, the horror community is a very tight knit group. We've got everybody from Joe Hempel, who
Yeah.
and I just think he's fantastic, and he just got a new big deal too
Yeah,
going
just
on.
linked in with Ethan and, Steve,
Exactly,
I read.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep, and of course, I've worked with James Kane and John Durgan and Andrew Van Wey and all these other great horror authors who, so then they're in this horror community on Facebook and other places, and they start talking and people start listening to their books and they say, hey, that Tom, their narrator's pretty good, or he stinks, or whatever their opinion is. But, how do I avoid him or how do I get him becomes the question. And then they contact me. So that's the relationship building part of this that can happen in the indie community that I just love. And I'm not shying away from anybody. Hey, if Podium called, we got something that we need done in 2 weeks, I would stop everything and do it. But I've built such a great community of authors
Yeah.
in various genres that they're just coming back to me with this series that they're writing. And so I've just got, because I'm not doing 55 books a year or more like you, Johnny. I'm doing, 16 to 22 books a year. I can work that way. And I can take the ones that have backlogs and fill them in the time when I've got a little bit of downtime between other projects that are coming at me hot and heavy from the authors that I'm working with.
If I get the okay from a publisher, well, I generally work for publishers, not that much for authors, but I still develop relationships with the authors because either they like, or well, if I don't like me, then I don't have much of a relationship. But if
Mm,
they like what I did, but I make sure it's okay. But then I try to find them. I try to find them on social media so that when I plug the book, even though I'm not getting a percent, I get a per finished hour, so I'm not getting a royalty.
right.
But either way, I plug the book,
Yeah.
and if I like it and I want to know, how their name, like, Don Baarns turns up blue when I put the little, what the hell, each sign in front of it.
Yeah.
What is that called? That little squirrely sign?
The
The sign.
ampersand?
Huh?
That's
Yeah, ampersand, but
The
it's
ampersand's
apple.
a and, isn't it? Isn't
Yeah.
it the each? Whatever it is. Anyway, so that little dude that makes the name, like I put Tom Jordan, he'll turn blue because he's
Yeah.
my friend. So I
Yeah.
make sure that when I put the guy in there, like Macmillan will turn blue, but I want Tom Jordan to
Right.
turn, and I want him to know. And I may send him a note, say, listen, I don't know if you even know, but had the honor of narrating your book. I thought it was fantastic. If I really, if I don't bullshit, if I didn't think that, I don't do it.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
do say that, and I try and develop, and that's nice. They like to hear that because we forget every single creative artist who creates art and puts it out there likes this.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's and if you say this was a joy, for some people it's a job.
Mhm.
Tom, here's a job. It's about, photosynthesis. All right, great. And it's rare you say, I really enjoyed your work on photosynthesis, but let's say it was really good, really well
Yeah.
written, really well, whatever it is. You can find something to say if you mean it, but it means something.
Right.
If it becomes just a paycheck, I start wondering, why am I doing it? Because
Sure.
I could have done a paycheck job,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
just think
Look,
it's important to be in touch with and to let the author know you enjoyed it so that their next one, they think of you. So that I like that guy.
every one that you do is another interview. It's a
Yeah.
way of leaving a good impression in a very good way with somebody. And that's why I do the same thing in all my pay per finished hour jobs. And I've got a lot of those. I'm not getting paid per volume sold, but I'm always giving back to the authors out there, and I do it in all earnest. It's like these people are good people, and I love working with them, and I let them know that. And I do the same thing.
I was going to block my mic so I could sneeze, and I blocked the hearing thing. That's me in a nutshell.
Different subject, Johnny.
Yeah.
So, Tom, can you tell us about your current projects? What are you working on now?
Sure. Currently, I had to look over my notes here because I want to make sure I get the author's name right. So I just finished a book by Steve Uncle Creepy Barton. So his nickname is Uncle Creepy, which I think is awesome. He is a horror super fan, and he's been around for 30 years in the horror genre, from everything from movies to podcasts to writing books. And keeping websites going for the horror genre. And he wrote an autobiography, which was fantastic. So that was through Encyclopocalypse, which is a small horror label that I work with quite often, and they're very good. Then they saw that was done, and they said, "Hey, we've got another one here. This is by the lead writer for Entertainment Weekly for 18 years, and his name is Clark Collis, and it's called Screaming and Conjuring." So it's all about the horror movie genre in the past 30 years. So it starts with Scream and it goes through The Conjuring. So Screaming and Conjuring. The subtitle is The Resurrection and Unstoppable Rise of the Modern Horror Movie. It's a 15-hour audiobook. They secured the rights to it, and so I'm prepping that right now. Because it's all about, it's a really interesting book too. But because it's about the industry, and I've done other ones where it was industry stuff. I did one for a stuntman, an autobiography for a stuntman, and they were always bringing up names that are so hard to pronounce. And you're talking about going online and figuring out how to pronounce names. So I came up with a list. By the way, Don, harping back to AI, I knew it would surface again. I used Notebook LM to find all of the hard to pronounce names in the manuscript. And it did it in 10 seconds, and it came up with a very comprehensive list of names. So that author right now is working through Encyclopocalypse. I'm not communicating with them directly, which is fine. Again, situation where the publisher is communicating with the author. And they're going to come up with pronunciations for these. And for any narrators out there watching this, you can get somebody trying to phonetically spell a pronunciation for a place name or a person name, but the very best thing to do is to have them record it. Just have them use their iPhone or their regular phone, whatever, to record something and say the name that you're trying to get to, that you're going to have to pronounce. And then you can chop it up in your DAW and create a file saying, and then label each one of these as the name. So when you come upon it in the manuscript, you can harp back to that and see how to pronounce it. I just had to do that for Uncle Creepy's book.
Yeah,
So
and Lisa always asks them to pronounce it 3 times at different speeds.
that's
so
a
that
good
she
idea.
has it super quick
Yeah.
and slow, and she's got a couple different references on it. And because half the time they record it, Johnny Heller. And it's like, what? Tom Jordan.
Yeah.
It's like, well, wait, could you say that in a way that I could understand it? That would be
I like doing it over Zoom so that I can actually stop them and have them repeat it if I have to. And
okay, that'll work. And so how long does it take you to prep a book? So you're working on a 15-hour thing right now, and
so and it's it'll take me a week or more. It's 7 to 10 days to prep it, to go through it, figure out all the words that I need to pronounce. So that was fast. But there's some intricacies. It depends on the complexity of the book too, as you guys know.
Yeah.
So I give myself at least a week.
Okay. No, I'm working on the whole project too. I'll have to show that off at some point if we get to that. But
Yes.
but yeah, so prepping is just forever. I mean, it takes a long time for a lot of people to do it. And I have something, and it's I actually have it up on a screen here, and it takes 5 minutes to get something for the book I'm looking at right here. Is an 8-hour book, and in 5 minutes you'll have an amazing amount of stuff, and the vocabulary stuff I'll be doing next. That's kind of that'll go after the first version is out, so I can show that at some point. But
since you guys have brought up prep, I find that I'm getting emails from people who are paying attention to the show and asking to coach with me. And the question that comes up time and again, and Tom, you've heard it. I'm sure, Don, you've heard it. I know Lisa's heard it. Do you need to read the book first? And it just seems to me, I mean, you think there's no such thing as a stupid question. And then of course, you hear one. So let me answer that if I can. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to read. Now, Don's thing we'll talk about later, but that it helps cut some of that prep time down. And there are people you can get people to prep books for you and stuff, but for me, and I'm sure Tom, for you, yeah, if you don't read the book, for me, in terms of it's like doing stand up where you only know the setups for the jokes,
Right.
but none of the punchlines.
Right.
It's just not helpful. And
Yeah.
I think you need to know because you're leading things along. And the prep puts you in the author's head, puts you in the place, get you the story arc. And then also in the prep, you're looking up the words so that when it's time to say them for the audiobook, they come trippingly off the tongue as
Mhm.
opposed to,
Yeah.
that stopping. What the hell is that word?
Right.
And I promise you, anytime it's French or foreign or weird, and it'll be in the list of words or long like Dickinsonian paragraph, that's the retake you're gonna get.
Oh, yeah.
And it's gonna be a long thing where everything's right, all the Latin's right, all the Spanish, all the French, and you said house wrong at the end. So then you have to redo the whole thing.
Right.
You mispronounced cat, so you
Yeah.
gotta redo it.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely true.
But so the prep that you do when you prep now, and when you're doing fiction, you do fiction and nonfiction, yes?
True.
Do you highlight the characters in fiction?
I don't. No, I know that a lot of people do, but
Mhm.
I'm able to switch back and forth pretty well without that. So,
'Cause acting?
yeah, because just the way my mind works.
Yes.
I can't do math, but I can do
Just
that.
say yes. Just say
Yeah.
yes, Tom, I'm fishing for a
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Yes, because acting. Yeah, I mean, some things just come naturally. That particular talent is there. I've tried highlighting before, and I found that it didn't help. So that was my
Yeah.
biggest hint as to why I don't need to do that again.
I just enjoyed the colors after a while and had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, the red
Well
and green.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, yeah,
When you work and you do these things because 'cause you're working from home,
right.
and I'm kind of I am impressed that you can divide your day as you do. Get up in the morning, your morning routine, and then do your work, and then do your other you gotta because at some point, regardless of how here's the thing, some of these books we get are really good.
Right.
Not all, I'll be honest, but some
Yeah.
are good, and you don't want it's the same as you don't want the listener does not wanna stop listening.
Yeah.
The reader does not wanna stop it's a great book. And you want and you have to stop at 7 AM and put on your editor cap
Right.
and change. Is that ever an issue? Or and is it a hard rule that at 7 or whatever time you pick, you switch?
It's a pretty hard rule. I like to keep those 2 worlds separate and as much as possible. And it's just something I've always done, realizing that I'm pretty privileged to have both of these jobs, the creative thing and then the
Yeah.
other thing that requires a different half of the brain for the most part, that's more technical. So yeah, I have to answer your question, I don't find that switch difficult. Now, there
Hmm.
are times when I am in the middle of reading, and like you said, just like people love to listen and continue listening, I like to continue reading, and not even if I already know the book, which I do because I've already read it through prep, but I know what's coming up next, and I really want to get to that part. I also realize that I can do that in a few hours for lunch, at my lunch break or something like that. So I'm able to discipline myself
But
to
what
do
about lunch? What about lunch?
I'm able to eat some lunch. I usually don't eat a lot for lunch anyway. My big meal is dinner, so there's that. But yeah,
I find if I mean, I enjoy everyone hearing everybody's schedule, but because Joanna and I both share this booth, so
right.
she's a late night. She's not through her own choice. She's a horrible insomniac, so she
Mm,
works late at night. But I can work anytime,
yeah,
so it doesn't matter to me. And for everyone out there, you will find Tom mentioned 3 hours in the booth. They'll get an hour and a half of time, recorded time. Those I want you to understand. Those numbers are different for everybody. And
mhm.
it's not a badge of honor one way or the other.
And
I
they're
mean, if
different for
you're
every
if
book too.
yeah, and it
Yeah,
can the complexity of the book, what's going on, and if you work 6 hours and only get 15 usable minutes, that's problematic.
yeah,
Right.
But if your 6 hours turns into 4 hours of use, it's don't worry. Everything it all depends on the book. It really does, and the more experience you get doing this, you'll find the more that the, recorded hours come closer to the actual hours in the booth.
mhm,
It just happens in time. It's just like you do fielding drills in baseball, and eventually you simply know how to play the bunt. It's just
Right.
automatic after a while.
Yeah, my readings become more fluid over the years too. I used to stop, twice a sentence. It seems like, is a little bit of an exaggeration, but not much. Even for simple things. Um, and now it's more fluid. I can go a whole paragraph sometimes without making a mistake. But I watch other narrators do this. There's a lot of narrators out there on TikTok doing live reads. Most of them are female. In fact, I would say 99% of them are. But they're doing these live reads, and they're going for hours. And now they're not without a mistake, but I'm just amazed at how fluid many of these people are. And Johnny, you're probably like this too. I make my share of mistakes along the way. I've talked to James about this too. He does the same thing, and I'm okay with that. It seems to be like, oh no, you made a mistake. I'm always able to cover it up. I punch and roll. I move through it. And
That's the
I
whole
don't
point of
have to
punching
beat
roll.
myself up about it, because if I did, boy, would that ever take the enjoyment away from narrating.
Yes.
If you get mad at yourself for the little mistakes that you make along the way, regardless of how simple and stupid they are, because most of them are, let's face it, then you're destined to not have a good time in the booth. And in which case, why even be here?
There are things, and that we should discuss this. When the mistake happens in a given sentence, it's natural for us to do the punch record, go back to the beginning of that sentence. If I go back in the beginning of the sentence that I made a mistake on twice and it's not right, if I made the same mistake twice, I go back 2 more sentences
Yeah, okay.
to kind of get a running start into it.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
otherwise,
and
your
it
whole
always
thing.
works. Yeah, because there's something that didn't click or something, and it may be that I'm putting emphasis on the wrong word, and it may be something I'm not hearing. But if you just go back a little further, there are a million ways, but at no point do I ever get upset with myself.
Right.
Kev, it just is what it is.
I do the
And
same thing, and that is very helpful too, especially after the couple of times. And plus, it gets your tone could be different for that
yeah,
read. Like,
yeah.
there's so many variations there.
And a lot of
Um,
times the you go up on a line in a book that you look and the words are right there. You can say the words.
yeah,
Generally, it's because your mind may be on lunch, may be on something that isn't mentioned in the book. So you need to think about that. And if you're going to read on Discord or TikTok or something, that's all fine, well and good. But make sure that you get, if it's friendly for a publisher, you've got to get permission.
oh yeah,
They don't want that book out there before they put it out.
right.
Because people can make a decision. Did they want to buy this book? Why
Right.
should I buy it? I just heard Tom read it.
Yeah,
He just did it for me.
yeah. Anytime I've ever done that, and I haven't done that for a long time. I was
Yeah.
doing it for a while there, but I always made sure that the author was okay with it.
Yeah, I've
Um,
shared a chapter or two.
This is we got another one. Do you seek
So,
out coaching?
yeah, Tom, do you seek out coaching to work on specific issues from time to time, or do you take coaching or workshops on a regular basis?
So I wouldn't say regular basis, but that's okay. You use it when you need it, and you use it as often as you can afford. I'll put it that way. I think that you need to be able to carve out time for coaching. And Johnny, you probably don't even remember this. This is 4 years now ago, probably more. I did an audiobook, and I hired you as my coach, and I think we spent 45 minutes of the hour. You said you can have that other 15 minutes sometime later. So I'm going to cash in on that one. I want 15 minutes, Johnny. Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. So there's that whole thing that comes back to, and Johnny, you still get coaching, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
1,000 audiobooks or more, and you still, and so it doesn't matter how seasoned you are. The great thing about the audiobook community too is that there's plenty of coaches to choose from. If one of them isn't working out for you, and have a 15-minute consultation, see if
Yeah.
they'll talk to you for 15 minutes first, which most of them will do. I think Carol Monda does it for half an hour free. I don't want to put that out there, but somebody like Carol Monda does
Yeah,
it.
I made fun of her for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so talk to them first, see if you click. Johnny and I clicked great. I just haven't had to call him on this. I've done PJ Auckland,
Yeah.
for accents, to get a Southern accent for a book. So using it ad hoc whenever needed,
Sure.
but then also going to things like the retreats, the New England Narrator Retreat, the New Orleans one, the Splendiferous workshops, and I'm only naming Johnny's things here, but they can be anything that anybody else does. Shannon Elizabeth Parks has a great series of online coaching workshops that she does. I'm a big fan of hers, and need to continue to get coaching from her because she's fantastic at what she does. So there's always narration coaches out there. If you're not part of Facebook, even if you don't want to talk about your own personal things and what you did with your dog the previous weekend, join Facebook for the voiceover groups and for the audiobook narration groups, because you will find a community there that will welcome you in, that will nurture you, and that will point you in the right direction, including finding coaches like Johnny and anybody else that's out there. I always use this when I'm talking to people about audiobook narration who are interested in it. I say, if you're an actor and you are in a Facebook group, Dustin Hoffman is not going to be there to give his opinion on your question and answer it within 30 seconds. But there's a very good chance that on these audiobook narration groups, somebody like Johnny or Scott Brick or Sean Pratt, especially, he's very active on Facebook. They'll be right there, and they'll be monitoring some questions coming through. You'll get answers from these people that are the top tier of audiobook narrators out there, which is pretty amazing. You're getting the Tom Hanks and the Dustin Hoffmans and the whomever of the audiobook narration world answering you personally, and then inviting you to message them if you have any further questions. It's like, how does that ever happen in any other, acting forum? So it's a really good place to be. And so I advocate for Facebook for that, and for that alone. Even if you don't like Facebook for whatever reason, join it for the groups that you can join.
Yeah,
For
Facebook does seem to be really have a lot of good audiobook centric groups and people. And I'll say something like, when people ask me if they want to coach, and I tell them what I charge, and I talk, and I offer them, I said, "Look, if that's too much, or I don't think I'm the right coach, I'll suggest Shannon, I'll suggest Carol, there are people who I know don't like me who I'll still suggest because I think they're the right coach of that person.
Right.
I don't care. Here's what I want, and here's what I think all the coaches and a lot of the industry wants. I want everybody in the industry to be as good as they can be all the time, so that it's always a human creative agency, so that AI is there as an aid to us in research. And it is now, we've been, if you use Google Maps or Waves, or whatever it is to travel. We use AI constantly and pretend we don't, but AI can't replace actors unless actors suck.
Right.
And then why not?
Right.
So that's why one of my phrases, not like this one, but the other phrase is, don't suck or stop sucking, either one. But don't, because that, as Tom said and Don said at the beginning, it's important that the actor constantly improve and work, become good, so that there's no room for AI to encroach on our business.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important takeaway.
Yep. Be the best narrator you can be, and just keep on learning whenever possible, whatever your wallet can afford.
Yeah. So would that be your advice for newer people starting out? Get some coaching?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime I talk to people that are moving from voiceover and interested in audiobook narration, which is seems like the bulk of people that I kind of work with and consult. I always talk about that. First of all, you're going to have to get coaching, and don't come to me for performance coaching, because I may know how to act my way through an audiobook and be okay at it. And, I've won some awards and stuff like that, but I'm not a performance coach. So there are people out there that are specifically good, that have got the technical skills because maybe they were on the stage, maybe they've had, and they're good teachers too. So come to me for the type of advice that I'm giving you now about finding a coach, but then go out there for performance coaching, and then come back to me for, hey, what's going on with ACX here? Why aren't I getting this? How can I find a good project on ACX? Which I'm also fairly good at, and meshed a lot of advice from people over the years, including people like Joe Hempel, on finding projects in ACX. So, that's how I work with people as much as possible.
That's great. And I'll say, as a plug, because you mentioned myself, the New England Narrator Retreat, which we just had the 10th anniversary, and you fellows were there.
Yep.
Things like that are different than one-on-one coaching. That's in places like that, you see if you go to Facebook and some of the groups, you see a potential community here. But if you go to some of these events, I know Jennifer Gillaraya does Starving Narrator No More in Cincinnati. I've not been, but I've heard good things. I know there's retreats and events all over the place. And I haven't been all. I know Joel does the audiobooks at sea, and I've heard great things. The idea of being at sea doesn't please me, so I'm not going. But these things you can, and you meet so many people. I'm going to plug the New England Narrator Retreat that Joanna and I run, because it's a great time, and everybody gets, and you make some life. I met Don. I don't know how Don even got to the damn thing, but he and I are tight friends now, and we've built that relationship. Tom and I think we're friendly because we see each other. And there's that warmth. It's that get together. This community, this audiobook community, more than any acting group I've been in, is the single most supportive group and network of people that I've ever encountered.
Right.
And that's because of people like you, Tom, and people like you, Don. It's because your heart's right there, and you're willing to open up, and you're willing to share. It's just different. I mean,
Well, it's a different industry though. Also, you have we don't directly compete.
Yeah.
So my
I
wife
mentioned.
is, I'm not going to audition for the same job that Johnny's doing and Tom's doing, or my wife. I mean, it doesn't matter. 99 point X% of the people I'm going to meet in this business are not going to overlap with what I do.
And even if you were going to the same job as I was, if you got chosen, that's nothing on me.
Right,
That's not
Yeah,
because
that's the
I'm
thing.
lousy. That's not,
That's
it's
exactly
everything.
right. And
It's a personal choice or the time of day that the person woke up that made the choice.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I always think of if I sound like their ex, that they don't like, of course, then I'm not going to get the job. It doesn't matter if I was the most qualified. That anybody
Yeah.
who's ever done in the performance arts knows when you audition, the factors that determine who get the job finally, often they are merit based, and then it's crazy how many times it's because he didn't have the right look, or he was too tall, or he was too green. Or I mean, it just comes down to a personal preference, and then
Yeah.
the negative that happens sometimes just cracks me up totally about, oh, I don't like working with that guy. He sounds like my mom, and yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
That also folds into reviews for audiobooks too. Sometimes you get some really crazy reviews from people that are obviously biased because you remind them of somebody that they don't
oh
like.
God, yes.
Yeah. I know we
Yeah.
shouldn't read reviews, but I do. Sorry.
No, I read. I look at them all the time. I find some amusing, some interesting.
Yeah.
They're none necessarily useful, but they're fun to look at. Yeah,
I gotta
I'll say it, and I've said it before. The best way to know that you're doing well at the audiobook job is when you get hired again by the
Correct.
same
Yes.
the same company, same author, same whatever. That means you're doing what they want.
right.
Yes.
Anybody from Spokane or something can write, Tom Jordan. Well, horrible. I hated that guy. Well, so what? Don't listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get those, and then they divide the review too. Some of the books I have swearing in it, so they don't like swearing. So
Yeah.
I get a 0 on my performance because the book has swear words in it.
Right.
I didn't write it.
Yeah.
You sons
I
of
got a
bitches.
I had a nonfiction audiobook one time that was through a publisher that had the word, it was the place name. It was Akron, Ohio, and I was saying Akron instead of Akron.
Oh,
And I had to say it 123 times. I counted, because it was a lot of things that happened around that city. So I got a 1-star review from somebody who said, "It's not Akron, it's Akron." I grew up in Southern California. Don, you may remember the Akron, which was a department store back in like 35, 40 years ago. And we always called it the Akron. It wasn't the Akron. So
Yeah.
that's why, and I wasn't born in Ohio. What the hell do
Well,
I?
New York has a
how do I know from Ohio?
yeah, New
Yeah.
York has a street. I believe
Columba.
it's called Houston.
Don't
Right?
go there. Don't.
But
Well,
here's the
Tom,
thing: if you're not
Yeah.
from New York, there's a place in Michigan called Mackinac Island. But if you read the word, it looks like Mackinac.
Right.
It's an Indian word, and unless you are somehow know about that region, you're never going to know it's not Mackinac because you look at the
oh,
word and you think,
and
well, I'm an adult.
you
I
have
can.
to look that up though.
Yeah, but you better do your
When you got a
research.
book, you wouldn't think you'd have to look it up, but I always look up place names because that very island was in the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald book,
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
all over the place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got to
Yeah.
always double check, always.
Did you have the Gordon Lightfoot song playing in the background or in your head?
Head in my head,
Yeah.
that, and they also like Brandy. Brandy,
Yes.
you're a fine girl.
Yeah.
So those two songs, were
Yeah.
competing. I almost did one or the other at the New England karaoke, but I didn't because they're both one's
Well, thank you.
kind of maudlin.
So as we wrap up here, Johnny, you have anything cool coming up here that you want to talk about?
Two quick things. One, I want to announce that Christine Van, my dear friend from Curated Audio, is our guest next week. And I want to real quick do my Norm Macdonald joke.
Yes.
Okay, ready? So when you look stuff up on for research, the YouTube things show the algorithm, show what you like. And I like Norm Macdonald. So here's a quick Norm Macdonald joke that came up. So this dog goes to this place to send a telegraph office. He goes in and he sends it. He goes, "Hey, dog, you want to send a telegraph?" The dog goes, nods, and the guy says, "Hey, what do you want to say in your telegraph, dog?" Dog goes, "Rough, rough, 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 rough." He goes, "All right," and he writes it down. He's, "All right, hey, dog, you've got 9 words here. You got a special going. You can do 10 words for the price, same price. Get an extra word. We can put an extra rough in there. It won't cost any more. Why do you want to do that?" And the dog goes, "Well, then it wouldn't make any sense."
The sign of a good joke is when you're laughing along as you're telling it before you even get to the punchline. That's a great
You're
joke.
fucking hilarious.
That was great.
Okay.
And Tom, anything
Yes.
interesting that we didn't talk about that you have coming up that you think it would be fun to let everybody know about?
Just keep on checking out, Facebook page, facebook.com/tomvoiceover, tomvoiceover.com. Look me up, say hi, if you're interested in audiobook narration, you don't know where to start, reach out to me. Let's just chat. And I'll send you to Johnny, for coaching and for Don for technical issues, and whatever else you guys may do. But yeah, I'm just enjoying it. I'm just loving the ride, man. So it's all very good.
Cool. Glad you're
Thank
here.
you so much, guys, for that.
Thank you for
Tom, it's
being
been an
here.
absolute
And
pleasure.
for just for everyone out there that's been following along, I've got something called pre-read for doing book prep, and people have been sending me scripts, and we find little things around the edges, but the core of this thing is just solid, and I think it'll blow you away. So that'll next week I'm going to definitely show that off, just because it's working fantastic, and by then have been through some beta testing. So if you have scripts, send them my way. I'm always looking for scripts just to make sure that we get edge cases where there's an unusual something that we didn't know about. And we're working on those right now, but within the next couple of days we'll be in beta, and it's pretty amazing what it can do. So hope you
But
have
we
a
still have to read the book.
you still have to read a book. It's called
Yeah.
pre-read. It's not
Yeah.
called get out
Read
of
for
butt.
me.
Hey, everybody does something where if you knew a little bit about it in advance, then you can save a whole bunch of time because you have some information. Anymore, if you knew all the vocabulary words in advance, then when you're reading through, you can kind of go, yeah, there's that one I need to do. So,
Can also help you decide whether or not to even take the job.
yep, that'll work
Yeah.
too. So,
Yeah.
hope you guys have a fantastic week. Look forward to seeing you next week. And as always, we'll see you on the wires. Have a great
Bye,
Bye. day.
everyone. Thanks again,
Thanks.
Tommy.
Bye bye.
You bet. Thanks, guys.